Hello there. Welcome to this evening's stream. It's Adam here. I am here, and again, I'm not a cat. That's gonna be a running joke until the video works on my phone. It does work on my phone, but if you want to see a ginger guy just stop and start constantly, you can just watch a claymation or something. Um, but yeah, it's Adam here from SCGC, and Ricky's here also. Say hello, Ricky.
Hello, Ricky.
And we're joined by our good friend Peter James Maggs, who will be our guest for tonight. Say hello, Pete.
Hello.
Long hair as well. I've not
Yep.
seen your hair so long.
Yes, it's not been this long in a while because, hairdressers used to be open, but apparently they don't exist anymore.
I have not a haircut in over a year.
Same. I had a haircut just before.
I was
I haven't had
due a
hair for over a
haircut.
year.
I was due a haircut around the time we went into lockdown, so I think it was about end of January 2020 that I had my last haircut.
Ah,
Every time your heads come together in my screen, it looks like you got three eyes. It's weird. It's like this three-eyed bespectacle, right? Bispectacle, trisectical. Is that right? Monster man. Anyway,
Okay, so anyway, Pete is an independent comic book artist and writer from the Swansea area. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
um, so I make a comic called The Many Strange Cases of Ghost Jones that I publish online every Wednesday on Webtoons, Tapastic, and on www.ghostjones.com. It's a all ages supernatural detective story about a group of detectives from a small town called Gloomshire that investigate crimes committed by phantoms. And it's not it's an adventure comic, but it's about friendship and it's about magical creatures doing stupid things and witches and all sorts. I've been doing it for about 5 years now. I print volumes for the convention every year, and unfortunately, I haven't done a volume 4, 5 yet because there wasn't a convention, unfortunately. But it's ready to print when conventions are happening again.
So that was going to be my next question was how long have you been doing it? But how did Ghost Jones come about?
It's a weird story that I don't think I've ever told anyone. But
first.
Yes, mostly because if I tell you this is how it started, you'd be like, that's just got nothing to do with the comic you actually make. But it's basically got nothing to do with the comic I actually make. I was listening to Kieran Gillen's On Again, Off Again podcast that I don't think he's done in years, Decompressed. And he was interviewing Anthony Johnston about The Fuse, his sci-fi book. And they talked about the idea of the detective as kind of a cipher for the person who died. And I had the idea of basically like a reverse dead man who he gets inhabited by the ghosts of the people who died, so he literally is a cipher for the people who died. And I had the name in my head, Ghost Jones, because haha, very clever. And then I was like, I don't really want to write that story because it sounds a bit grim. So I ended up making the comic I make, which is a light-hearted comic about crimes committed by ghosts. So that's how it was a weird, not really connected story about how it kind of came into being. But yeah, I kind of wanted to make something more light-hearted, and yes, a comic that dealt with death all the time probably wasn't going to be that. So I was like, ghosts, the character's name, this all works. I can still use this.
So it's a really fun little romp. And great for all ages. People should check it out. It gives me the feel of like a Matt Smith era Doctor Who, but more supernatural.
Okay.
Was that
I didn't watch.
No?
I haven't watched Doctor Who in years. Like my Doctor Who era is Tom Baker, which was not even an era I was alive for.
I think I was just about alive for.
It was reruns of Tom Baker era Doctor Who is the only Doctor Who I've really seen. I've seen the Christmas special once in a while, but yeah, I've not really been not a modern Doctor Who watcher. So,
but if you are fans of Doctor Who, you will really enjoy Pete's book anyway. So how did you get into comics?
it was. I think it was the first time my parents let me out of the house to come into Swansea Town Centre on my own, and I stumbled across the comic shop. And I think it had been Free Comic Book Day recently, so we had free comics left. So when I bought some HeroClix, because I liked superheroes because of the cartoons, I hadn't really read much at that point. I was about 12 probably. I'd read other comics and Beano, Dandy, that sort of thing, but nothing, not American mainstream superhero stuff like you kind of think about. And it was in the bag. There was a bunch of stuff, but there was a X-Men, a Grant Morrison era X-Men comic, and I read that cover to cover over and over again until I went back into the shop and picked up my first ongoing on standing order, which was unfortunately New Excalibur. I liked it at the time. I don't know if I remember it at all, but it was also introduced me to the world of the whole Marvel universe. There's different universes and stuff because it had Nocturne in it, who is Scarlet Witch and Nightcrawler's daughter from another universe. And I was like, I know those two characters from the X-Men cartoon. They have a daughter in another universe? Interesting. But I think it was the fact that it had Captain Britain on the cover, and it was in it. I think they fought the mutant hunting hound things. I can't remember what they're called. There's one in the current Excalibur.
I know what they're called. Damn it. They're not called, damn it.
Adam.
They were fighting them, but they transformed from the lions in London. So it was I flicked through it and was like, oh, this is British. This has cultural touchstones for me. This is cool. I've never seen an X-Men comic that was in Britain. So I was like, okay, cool. So I picked that up, and that was my first ongoing, and that was kind of, it all went uphill from there, and I read more and more and branched out. I'm
glad you said uphill, not downhill.
Yeah, it's not a problem. I can quit anytime I want. It's uphill. My ever-growing collection is a good thing. And then I started reading more independent stuff, and then went to my first conventions in the UK and picked up small press, and it was an ever-growing interest. And then I obviously kept going back to the comic shop and spoke to the guys who worked there, and they introduced me to new stuff. And then when I spoke to Mark, who obviously a member of the Swansea Comic Collective and regular at the convention, he started talking to me about wanting to set up a group that was in Swansea and kind of to help basically be like a support group for each other when we make comics, because I drew all the time, but I never really tried to make anything. And then that kind of started me in kind of taking the idea of actually making something seriously. And then I went off to university to do illustration, and managed to kind of hone my skills over 3 years of forcing my tutors into letting me make every project a comics project, much to their dismay. Except for the couple of times I couldn't. It didn't make sense with the brief. I had to do something else. But where I could...
All right, then. I'll do something that isn't comics.
Yeah.
And then... I can relate. I wrote my dissertation on comics.
I managed to avoid doing a dissertation and got to do an experimental comics project instead. That was my first dabbling with webcomics, that project, where I had a list of kind of prompts that were it rather than a story prompt, it was more of a stylistic prompt. In terms of make this a 4-panel page, make this a page where the number of people in each panel is equal to the panel number on that page. So panel 1 had 1 person, 2 had 2, so on and so forth. And it was, and then like, do this page as an abstract page. Don't like no bigger drawing, just kind of shapes. And so it was like it was because I'd been at that point had been reading a lot more of the kind of less mainstream stuff, and had gotten into some really interesting cartoonists like Michael DeForge, who does very strange things in terms of the way he kind of represents figures and stuff. So it was a chance to kind of explore that side. I did come back to a more representational form with my comic drawing, but just experimenting and kind of figuring my way into what I ended up doing. And then I broke my arms immediately after university and couldn't draw for 2 months. So
Did you really?
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Oh yeah, on my first, I
Don't you remember
got
him walking around with 2 casts?
Yeah, I was double casting it.
I thought you just like trying to be buff or something. I thought you was just walking around like like one of those invisible carpet salesmen.
No.
I genuinely do not remember.
Oh yeah, it was my first day at Amazon. I got a job working at Amazon for like the Christmas temp job, and I fell off my bike cycling to Amazon warehouse and broke both my wrists. Did an entire day of work at Amazon with broken wrists, and then got let go on sick because I obviously couldn't work with 2 broken wrists. So that was an exciting foray into my second job ever after my job at the comic shop. And so I was stuck not being able to draw for 2 weeks after having drawn almost every day for the past 3 years of university, and then had a epiphany that if I wanted to draw all ages comics, I should make them like the most popular all ages thing at the time, which was Adventure Time, and tried to make my style work that way, and then realized that I wasn't as good at it as the people who clearly came up with the style because they were the creators of the show, and then settled on doing something that was more me.
I don't know. I did really dig your. I'm not even joking. I really did like your mayor's panel in Copperopolis.
Yeah, I'm like, not to toot my own horn, but I know what I'm doing, and so even when I'm doing something that's maybe not necessarily 100% my speed, which I didn't think that was, it takes some time. Like when I think it came from the fact that I think all through my artistic education, they're constantly like, study an artist. So you're always like, okay, pick an artist, mimic them for the period, for the project, for the length of the project, and then move on to the next one, and never really had a chance to really find what I wanted to do. And after, I think I pitched something to Nobrow in that Adventure Time-esque art style and didn't hear anything back, and went, maybe that's a sign that I'm trying too hard. Maybe I should just draw like me, which ended up being the style that I've kind of stuck with, and it's still evolving. Yeah. I think if you look at the first page of Ghost Jones and the page I drew last week, they're not only stylistically quite different in terms of my rendering stuff, but obviously I've just, you get better over that period of time anyway, but they're definitely still working towards, I think, people do. People, I'm sure complete, like, published professionals who aren't self-publishing probably feel the same way about them. Just because someone's willing to give you money before you print the thing instead of after doesn't mean you probably aren't still feeling like you're learning, because I think everyone has a bit of that kind of in the back of the head going like, oh, I can do better. And I think it's one of those things that if you think you've hit your plateau, then you should probably stop, because if you can't get better, what's the point in trying? Well, looks like Adam comes down.
He's back. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I just went then.
Like you were saying, that's it, isn't it? And there's always that imposter syndrome where like everyone is thinking, oh, how can I can't say that I'm a writer or an artist, or so you've got that as well on top of it all.
I'm different though. I if I write something and it's no good, I don't like people. I don't like people pandering to me. I don't like people going, "Oh, no, it's great." I want them to tell me how bad it is or what's bad about it, because you don't get anything from praise. You grow from, not criticism, but you grow from guidance.
Yeah.
And some criticism.
Yeah. I definitely don't want people criticizing my writing in the comment section of my webcomic, because, that's just where I want to get the good feels. But, yeah, if I hand it to a person who I'm like, tell me what you think of this seriously, I don't want pandering. I want if I've written a duff line, like, you're always your own worst critic anyway, for the most part. I constantly second guess stuff I've written, because even after writing a webcomic for 5 years, I still wouldn't call myself a writer. I hide behind the moniker of cartoonist because it's easier than, because I write for a fraction of the time that I draw. Because Ghost Jones walks into the crime scene, looks at the floor, makes a funny face. It's way easier to write than actually drawing all of that and backgrounds and making it look, it takes me more time. It's not necessarily a harder skill. Writing and drawing are just two different things. Not to say that writing isn't, but that's why. But because I don't write to
Casually dissing us here, Ricky.
I'm not.
No, I can hear him trying not to diss us.
But, no, I know what you mean. I mean, when you write then, do you write just for, well, I mean, obviously you're writing for yourself anyway, but do you write then as a placeholder so you remind yourself where you're at and what the pacing is and things like that? I
want the flow of the story to make sense. It's not completely stream of consciousness off the top of my head. I have a plan going into everything. So the things that I call chapters in my physical editions are basically that is the amount of story I've planned out at any one point, and once I hit the end of that, I need to plan again. So I'll usually do that at this, once I hit the end of one section, I'll write, and it's that's one of the reasons why I don't feel like I have enough skill as a writer, is because I write once every year most of the time with Ghost Jazz. I'm working on other stories that I'd like to do something with eventually, but when you have a day job that takes up 5 days of your week and you only have 2 days to focus on your creative stuff, it becomes a bit hard to do the page a week for your webcomic and also actually make any art for any of the other things you've written. Because I'll write in the evenings because it's slightly less. I need to get slightly less into a headspace because I'm not trying to write a script. I'm not trying to write anything formal. I'm literally just writing bullet points or stream of consciousness, just getting everything out of my head when it comes to the ideas that aren't Ghost Jones. Ghost Jones is a bit more structured because I need to make sure that I've got a page with a satisfying conclusion so that when you come back every week, but then also a story that flows nicely when it's in print form, which is the difficulty of webcomics compared to just write straight for a book format, because you don't want every page, whereas it's usually you've got the 2 pages, the page turn happens here, whereas the page turn is happening every page on the web, so every page needs to kind of.
I was just about to ask about that. Do you structure it directly for the review, the page turn on the web comic rather than the physical book?
I try, I do my best to do right by both of them. I will most I probably wasn't doing it early on, I admit. If you probably look through the first couple of volumes, they are probably the page to scene changes, reveals, they're probably all over the place. But I do try to make sure that scene changes are on the page turn in the physical book as well, just because I feel like one page happening in one scene and one page happening in another probably doesn't read particularly well. So that's the only kind of hard rule I stick to in terms of keeping the flow for the thing. But every page, starts at a place, ends at a place leading into what happens on the next page. That could just be someone's walked through a door, or someone is about to respond to something that's happening. So, and also I don't have too many like exciting page reveals because the story is a lot more kind of low key than that. It's a ghost that's rearranged a shop window. It's not, a villain that needs to be thwarted. Except for in the more recent stories, there is actually villains now. I have bad people who are genuinely bad people, which it took me a while to get to, because you feel like if you write a bad person and they do a really mean thing, what are people going to think about you? That's my personal hurdle to overcome. But now I'm just reveling in the fact that I have an ever-growing group of incredibly awful people that want to do an incredibly awful thing.
Yeah, and people tend to be drawn to these horrible people. Like, when you think of it, like, the Joker is a vile person, but he's super popular.
That is true. People in the comment section on the web, I don't really get many comments outside of Webtoons. Webtoons is my kind of biggest reader base. But in them, they tend to more like the nice people than the evil people. They just, they're like, ooh, those are evil people. And the nice people are like, ooh, protect them.
You're a solid fan base then, I'm guessing, as well.
I've got I have 2,000 readers. I don't think they all read every week. But I have 2,000 subscribers on Webtoons, and what really helped with that was Webtoons featured me a couple of times over the course of the first year I published on Webtoons, because I was posting daily the first year I was on Webtoons, because I'd been publishing elsewhere for a long time. No, I would have killed myself if I'd done that. Also, my workplace would have been like, that's not the work we pay you for, because I would have had to do it all the time. But no, I'd built up a backlog, and someone had recommended, try this website as well to put on. And apparently being very active on that website means that the people who curate the featured page take notice, regardless of how many followers you have to start with. And it helped me build a reader base on that website. Whereas I'm still working up to my 100 subscribers on Tapass, and Tumblr. I think I've got 30 people, but Tumblr is just where I put it to call my website. I just use that as a redirect spot.
Yeah.
But
so,
I think
what comic books and artists would you say are some of your influences then?
Biggest influence, I think, on what I make these days is probably Luke Pearson, who I discovered at university because Nobrow Press came to do a talk at my school and at my university, and showed us all the books they published, and his really caught my eye. So I picked up the first couple of books, and I really fell in love with not only his art, but also the types of stories and the way he chose to tell stories, because there are perils and there are villains, but it's a lot of just they're misunderstood, but not in the Joker's a misunderstood madman. No, the Joker's a terrible person, whereas the creatures in Luke Pearson's books are, well, no, this is just how the creature acts. We don't really get to control how other worlds that live beside us work, and his stories really kind of, from that perspective, kind of touched me and definitely influenced the way I kind of handle the magical worlds in my own books, because a lot of the time they'll be the criminal that the detectives are hunting down is just, they don't understand how human society works, because they're a ghost and they can walk through walls, or they can make things levitate, or there are still some who use it for nefarious purposes. There's a jewel thief one, but it's very much just this is a different world and it works differently to ours, and I like that about his work, which really kind of inspired me to kind of start telling the stories that I wanted to tell, because those were the types of stories that just naturally came from me. Whereas I think a lot of the time you kind of trying to tell the stories that you think are popular, or you think this is how a story's meant to be, rather than, well, but what do I want to say with my writing and with my art? And he's probably my biggest influence. Also, Tintin and Hergé and that kind of clean line style is also a big influence, and that's something that I kind of like a lot with the that kind of movement of artists that kind of came from him and obviously before him, but that very sparse style that allows you to, like, it's all about telling the most convincing image in the least busy, because, you know, sometimes you can equate quality to for a number of lines, whereas there is a lot of difficulty and a lot of skill and a lot you can get out of trying to be more sparse with your artwork.
Yeah,
which I really enjoy doing.
Yeah. So, like a pulpy adventure comic would be something you draw a lot of more influence from than your run of the mill A-lister.
Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like kind of the indie comic scene that really kind of this, because you read these kind of very polished superhero comics and stuff published by Image and what and the big publishers in America, and you kind of see this like this. It's quite precise and it's quite mechanical in some ways in terms of its production value, not necessarily the artwork, obviously, but the kind of production of it. Whereas getting into kind of small press stuff and kind of the kind of smaller publishers like Koyama and No Brow and they were small back when I kind of found them. Now they're huge and have Netflix shows made out of books they publish and whatnot. But you know, those kind of it feels a lot more like there is a person behind this thing, and it feels a lot more kind of like there's still personal stories being told in all those places. And I think Image skirts that line because some of it can be highly produced and some of it can be a bit more. It really depends on the person behind it, which is one of the great things about Image. But small press is like Image on steroids because it's always the person. It's like their choice of printing, like how it's printed, how it's how it's presented. Everything about it was decided by that one person, and there's no kind of intervening force telling them there needs to be a certain way. Which I think really inspired me just to do it rather than worry about finding a publisher, which is something I'd like to do. I've done the whole making the comic thing. I'd like to get paid to make the comic eventually.
Yeah,
wouldn't we all?
Because
I think it shows. I think it shows your character more when you're self-publishing as well, because as you said, you're choosing everything about that. You're making all of the conscious decisions yourself, even if you're outsourcing somebody to do some of it. You're the one picking and choosing that instead of some editor going, "We'll do it that way." So
yeah, obviously there are good things about editors. They kind of can help make the story better, help make the story make sense if you've kind of gone off the rails. I imagine an editor would have a field day with my work because I don't edit. It doesn't get edited by anyone because I get my partner to look over it. She tells me if something doesn't make sense completely, and she'll proofread my books before I print them so that all the spelling mistakes I put online don't make it into the print edition for forever. Which has definitely happened. Don't comb through them too closely if you have them, please, because I'll worry that you've done that now. I shouldn't have said anything.
no comment.
But yeah,
We've had a few with though, haven't we?
But yeah, I'm sure I would benefit from editor because I think I am a bit, I can be quite over the top, and I think I've definitely elongated a scene or two that probably could have done with being shortened. But I was happy with it, and I mostly make my books for me because I want to. It's lovely that people read them. I love that people read them. I love that people get something out of them. And when people come up to me at conventions or in the comment section and tell me that they've enjoyed it, it makes me want to go further, but the thing that keeps me going is the fact that I'm still enjoying it. So
We're glad that you're still enjoying it.
So, speaking of cons, what cons do you normally do? And are you like booked in for anything?
Hint, hint.
No,
I do the Swansea Comic and Gaming Convention every year. That's the only one I do every. It's the only one I
I'd
do
seen you
every
somewhere
year.
before.
That and the Cardiff Independent Comic Expo that was when that was running. I know that
That was cool.
kind of
I
took the
missed
last
that.
year off, or was planning on taking 2020 off. I can't remember. Time no longer has any meaning to me. But yes, they're the only two I kind of do religiously because I don't drive. Therefore, traveling further afield is a little bit prohibitive at the moment, or has been for the 5 years I've been going to conventions. I've been to Thought Bubble. I've done Thought Bubble. I've done a couple of
Cheltenham?
Birmingham. Sorry.
Cheltenham?
Yes, I went to that. I went to that 1 year, and was planning on going again next time I could. And I've been to a couple up in Birmingham because my partner's family live nearby, so we're able to stay with them. That's quite convenient. Like I did the MCM up in Birmingham, and I did one of the smaller ones up in Birmingham. I can't remember the name of it. That might have been Ice in Birmingham. Yeah, I think it was Ice.
Yeah, Ice was cool.
Yeah, I've not done a tremendous amount just because there aren't that many I can get to that easily. Like I was looking at some of the ones in Newport when I was, because I'd kind of taken a bit of time out of it because I was moving house. But because I 2019 I kind of only did Swansea. I didn't really do anything else because I was moving that year. But I was hoping in 2020 to get back into conventions in a big way, and then we got locked down and everything got cancelled, and I was like, well, I'm not sure if this is going to happen, so I don't want to commit, because committing to a convention means trying to make more product, and I was like, well, I don't want to then spend a bunch of time making product when I could be developing ideas and working on the webcomic and building up buffers and that stuff. So I ended up not booking in anything. So when booking becomes a thing again and I'm more confident that conventions will happen, I definitely will be probably doing those sort of ones again. I might try and get into Thought Bubble again, and maybe head up to some of the NCMs that I've heard good things about.
So
Cool.
if you fancy a long train, I really enjoyed MCM Glasgow. That was a good one. That's a fun one. But obviously I'm gonna say all the more independent ones are usually really fun. Like Ice, True Believers. I'm trying to think of all the ones we've been to.
Ice when it was running. Hopefully it'll come
Cardiff.
back.
And what was the one up north that we went to? Oh, well, Thought Bubble and Stoke-on-Trent we had fun at. But it's just. But if you want like more of that indie feel, nice in Bedford is an amazing convention. Because the names he gets there are outstanding for comics. So some of the ones I like to go to when I'm selling my comic or your comic.
Yes.
Just to interrupt, I don't know if he's come up on comments, but my mate's just messaged. I think he's watching. He's just gone, I didn't know you were interviewing David Tennant. Thank you, Jamie.
I get that a few times, not a lot. I'd be lying if I said I got that a lot.
In Good Omens.
Okay.
All right.
That's
so
a good
compliment. Staged now.
I've not watched that yet. I want to, but I haven't.
It's good. Fantastic. Trying to think now. Adam's thrown me now.
Good. I was going to say something as well. What was it? Do you I mean, do you find though that you're getting by? Have you noticed any uptake with the being a web comic predominantly? Do you find that you're still getting orders and things like that? Has it changed any?
I probably could
You can say no
maybe get
comment.
more orders if I actually was smart enough about promoting myself, because I'm terrible at social media. I do not do it nearly as much as I should. But I constantly tell myself I'm going to. But
You're pointing at me.
Yeah.
I've got a pathological dislike of anything that I can't be just completely open and rude about. So I have to constantly censor myself when I'm on social media.
So just in case people have joined us late, where can they find Ghost Jones? We'll just keep plugging it.
okay, so www.ghostjones.com, or you can search for Ghost Jones on Webtoons or tapas.io.
I just want to say you need to fix your website as well.
Yes, I do.
No, I mean your about doesn't link to anything.
Does it not? Okay.
No, I made sure that on our website, on Facebook, sorry, that I put your about, because it doesn't tell you your about isn't anywhere on your main page.
Okay. Yes,
Just letting you
I
know.
do need. Is that on the Ghost Jones website or on peterjamesmags.com?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was like, before conventions were going to start, I was like, I will fix my website again and update it and put new stuff on it. And then I started, and then I was trying to figure out what template I wanted to use, and then every convention was going to be cancelled, so I decided not to.
Web based.
And then Adam
So my web, yeah, and then Adam calls me out live that my website is broken.
The heat is on, people.
I will.
There's
now I'm
another
going to have
reason
to
to check
fix it.
now, though, because you can just keep reminding him, people.
Yeah.
Just keep an eye out. Just let him know while you're there. Browse the comic books.
Yeah, I'm going to have to fix it now. But yeah, my other website, which is completely broken, if you want to see the... I'm gonna take the crown. The worst website on the internet. peterjamesmags.com. Or at least the most broken website on the internet right now that has any information about me on it. It's more a crown, but it's still a crown. Or you can follow my slightly quiet Twitter account at Peter James Mags on Twitter, or my Instagram that I don't think I've updated in a couple of years now, which is also Peter James Mags. But now that I've told people about them, maybe I should start posting them. I hope people like cat pictures.
Oh, I'm sure they will. Sam,
I think you said catfishing then. What?
No, cat pictures. I got a kitten, so now that's all I'm going to post online. That's what everyone else does.
Yeah,
I moved away from my little comfy chair.
Probably be all over you now.
Oh, she'll be happy
That you need to bring the cat in.
Okay.
Well,
my cat's currently sitting on my office chair.
Someone in chat has just said they do like following, using Instagram to follow webcomics. So there you go.
Okay. I will endeavour to make sure that I update that more often then.
And Sam,
this is more of an intervention now, isn't it?
And then Sam has piped up to say she heard cat pictures, so she's going to be following you.
Okay, I will. Okay, after the stream, I will take a picture of the cat and I will post it on my Twitter and my Instagram. That is a promise I will keep.
So, what have you been filling up your time in lockdown with?
So I have been a lot of video games. Last year was a really good year for video games, thankfully, because Last of Us 2. I know it has mixed reviews, but I really like the Avengers game. Personally, it was a lot of fun. Final Fantasy VII Remake was amazing, and my newest obsession is Bloodborne, which I've been playing a healthy amount of. Which was a game I started years ago, hated because it was incredibly difficult, and then watched someone actually give advice on what your starting build for that game should be, and I went, I'll try that, and then I did, and then I actually started really liking the game. Yeah, games where you can win are really good, but Bloodborne's a really good game that you can win at if you try really hard, but it's also really satisfying when you do, because it's very difficult. And other than that, I've been slowly painting the miniatures I bought in March of last year because I wanted to get back into wargaming. And then you can't go anywhere to do wargaming, so I haven't been able to get back into wargaming.
Oh, so
But
what have you bought miniature wise?
because I used to play 40k when I was when I was a teenager, so I thought I'd try out the other side of that, which is what used to be Warhammer Fantasy Battle, but is now Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
So I started a Gloomspite Git army for Age of Sigmar, so trolls and goblins, and I've been kind of slowly buying the army through lockdown, and I've built most of it now, and I've started painting some of the trolls, which are nice big models. So it was good because I haven't painted miniatures in a long time. So they were good to get kind of started back in because they're big and less finicky. And then I started painting the goblins, and foul language came out of my mouth because they were tiny little things that you're trying to get all the details on. And even though I'm an artist, my hand is not steady, so I have big problems with that.
The most painful thing I've had to paint is Ricky got me for Christmas the HeroClix Wolverine unpainted model.
All right.
And I literally had to go to because my laptop for work is sometimes the text is a bit small. I bought just a pair of reading glasses. I don't need them for real life, just to see the screen every now and then. I put these reading glasses on, and only then could I actually paint Wolverine's eyes. They're so tiny. They're like the head of a pin.
Yeah.
But it's satisfying though, isn't it?
I've been painting my Ogre Blood Bowl team on stream, and like the Ogres are fun because they're big, they got chunky bits, and then you've got Nobblers, and they like tiny by comparison. It's like, oh my god, I hate this. I'm not.
Yeah, he's got a teeth. He's got teeth up there. That's his forehead. Yeah, he's got teeth in his forehead. It's fine.
Yeah, it's someone else's teeth.
Yeah. That's likely in Blood Bowl. I got Blood Bowl just after Christmas and played it with my partner, and it was a lot of fun. It's a very different game to any of the miniature games I've ever played because it's a lot back and forth, but it's good fun.
And then when you play it as a league, so that people dying actually matters, it just takes on a new meaning. Then hopefully when this is over, we're gonna start a league, so you'll have to join us if you want.
Yeah, definitely.
And obviously I've got a Nurgle demon army that I can Age of Sigmar, so
cool.
So yeah, if you ever need a
don't pretend like you don't have pretty much every army going now by this point, Ricky.
I don't. I've got a Nurgle demon army because it goes with my Death Guard army.
Goes with his hair.
Which came about because I had a Chaos army, and then my main army is Orcs.
Okay.
So
I was Orcs when I played 40k. Orcs were fun because there's a lot of them. And the painter though, they're terrible because there's so many of them. And I don't know why I did it to myself again by having a Goblin army for Age of Sigmar, because a unit is 20 men, and I'm like, oh god, I've got 20 of these almost identical models to paint. This is going to take a long time.
But they're fun as well. Like I've seen some of those Gloomspite Gits models, the goblins in there, just look fun.
Yeah. So that's basically why I picked them. I didn't even know how. Like I have no idea. I didn't like. I've read the rules to familiarize myself with them, but I've obviously never played. But so I didn't know the rules for the army before I bought them. I just bought them because they looked fun. I liked the troll models a lot, so I was just like, "Give me trolls, give me goblins, awesome."
I don't play. I have no intention. I know that I don't like the game. It's just not something for me. But I've got whatever sets. I built most of them. Painted.
He's got a small
some of them.
Imperial Guard army or Astra Militarum.
Okay. I just like the look of some of them, and I was like, you know what, that'll look cool with silver on it, and and the rust effects or the oil effects, like you get washes and things like that.
Yeah.
And I've done some of the what's it called? oh darn, what's it called? The Marvel Crisis Protocol stuff. I did a pretty cool MODOK. Then gave up trying to paint the fire underneath his seat.
That model
Couldn't get
is
it right.
very cool, and I've been tempted to get myself the MODOK model because I love MODOK, but it's also a really cool model.
It is worth the build. It's big enough. It's a little bit bigger than obviously the normal figures, but it's not as. I mean, you both know yourselves. Putting like Warhammer stuff is just almost always perfect. Like you put everything together, it snaps together or glues together. You know, even if you're modding it, kit bashing it, it just seems to work. There's so many options. The Marvel Crisis Protocol stuff really works most of the time, but sometimes there's unnecessarily small pieces or bits that just you have to file down a lot.
Okay.
The MODOK is still worth a pickup though because it's just so cool.
And if you now that you're on our Discord, if you check in there, one of the guys has posted the Captain America he's been painting in the miniatures thing. So obviously, join our Discord if you're watching this. And we've also got things going on like giveaways and stuff. When we get to 75 followers on Twitch, we're gonna start doing some giveaways. So share it with all your friends. The only other thing that we normally do is like some fun questions. So Adam, have you got your versus question ready this time?
I've been trying to think of a good one because you're all over the place in your reading, but we normally do superheroes because it's the mainstay. I don't know really. Last time I gave Joe Glass Nightcrawler versus North Star. I'm trying to think of something. I don't know. Have you got anything, Ricky? You throw out one, I'll throw out another. Let's see.
Okay, so seeing as you said your gateway to comics was New Excalibur, Juggernaut versus.
Ooh. Okay, I know this one because I've read this. Juggernaut versus Dazzler.
Oh.
That's an actual fight as well. I've read that in Excalibur.
Well, I want to say Dazzler because I love Dazzler. Dazzler would be my preferred character, and if I was writing that fight, she would somehow win. But obviously, Juggernaut. He's literally unstoppable. That's his power. He would steamroll Dazzler. Yes.
Yeah. Then he ends up in the swimming pool somewhere.
Yeah. But I presume if he's fighting Dazzler, he's probably not a good. So yeah.
It was in I can't remember what issue, what year it would have been. It's probably like 87 or something like that. The Excalibur team they got Dazzler with them, and he ends up accidentally killing her. He's like a big fan of hers, and she thinks he's trying to attack her. So they fight, and he like knocks her out accidentally, and he buries her in the middle of nowhere. She wakes up underground, and there's no sound for her to use this energy, except for like mice and worms and like the sound of the wind. And she manages to blast herself out of this like cairn that he builds for her, and that's how you also get the phrase Rambo. If you're rogue and you're fighting Juggernaut in a train station, the sound effect when the two meet is Rambo.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Facts about old comics from Adam.
There we go.
And any comics that you would like to recommend?
Oh, I'm all in on the X-Men stuff at the moment. All the Hickman verse of X-Men. X Factor, though, is the one I'd probably recommend out of that. That's a really fun book. It's got a really cool, very unusual cast. It's got one of my favourite characters in it, Eye-Boy, because he's covered in eyes. What more can you want? And he's also just hilarious. And they're doing some really good. Leah Williams is doing some really good work in that book with Dakin, who is a character I've never particularly liked, but I really like in that book. I was
just going to say, I always love in the X-Men when they take one of those joke background characters and then just make them into something you really like Glob Herman, for example.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That should be in the versus question. Eye-Boy versus Glob Herman. But
don't make me pick. I love them both. They'd just hug it out. they're good
They
guys.
would.
They just give up. They just Trevor wouldn't fight. That's to be fair.
They'd make eye
Guy Boy would
jokes,
never
no
fight.
doubt.
Yeah, I don't think Guy Boy would throw a punch. He'd just be like, "You win, goodbye."
Bruh.
Yeah. Aside of that, I just read Ludocrats by Kieran Gillen and Jeff Stokely, which is the bizarrest book in the world, but it was a lot of fun because it's all about the Ludocrats, who are ludicrous by nature, and it just it's mature readers, but a very, very fun book that is
So
just
kids, ask your parents first.
yes, or don't ask them and don't read it because it's don't. But it's a book I've read recently that I really liked, so I'll recommend that. As well as, and also, I've been reading the collected volumes of Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil, which is a really
I'm reading that monthly.
okay.
My favorite book at the moment.
I'm only 2 volumes in, but it's just the way the first volume ended with Matt realizing that all his friends were bad people, basically, or thinking they were all bad people because superheroes collateral damage.
Because of plot progress.
Yeah, and he it was just like, oh yeah, Matt thinks he's Matt thought everyone was a saint, but no, they're not. They've all done questionable things by accident. So yeah, and Chip is a great writer. I don't think I've read a single book by him that I haven't thought he nailed the characters. He just seems to get.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he is
Just
one of
came
those
out of left
names
field for me.
I look for now when I'm looking at new books and stuff.
Yeah, he's.
Weirdly, I found him as an artist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was the first book I saw him on was as an artist, and then also kids don't look up Chip Zdarsky as an artist. But it's a title you don't want to say out loud, especially to other people. Like, what are you reading?
That's it. And that's it. It's one of my favorite books of the last
you can't recommend
years,
it on.
But you can't recommend it on family-friendly things.
Yeah.
Because you've got to go into the whole explanation of why it's called that.
Yeah. Recommending a book that is mature and just saying this is a good book. It's mature. Ask before reading
Until you're older,
is fine.
Yeah.
But saying A, the title of that book, and 2, the premise of that book is going to lead you down accidentally revealing too much.
Didn't you read it on a bus once or something?
I'd read it at work.
All right, I knew you told me something like that when I was picking it up from the comic shop.
When I worked in the call center, while dialing numbers, I'd read comics when I picked my stuff up on a Wednesday, and it was the first issue of that, and I was reading it at work, and then the content of that book came up, and I went, probably should have thought about this, but I was really excited about the book, so I wanted to read it. But yeah, because Chip's Howard the Duck book is absolutely phenomenal. It is one of my favorite Marvel runs, I think, ever at this point, because he took a character that is a joke and made him have pathos and real deep stories, and it all felt real, and it was still Chip, so Chip's kind of a funny guy. Which really shocked me about Daredevil, to be fair, is the fact that his Daredevil is somber. His Daredevil, he's really gotten that tone, of a, the Catholic guilt.
Yeah.
That Daredevil has to have. I don't think what else. I guess one of the other things that has been comfort food for me during lockdown has been superheroes, because they were my gateway into comics, and they have continued to be the thing that I gravitate to in times of just wanting to kind of, if I want to read something and I don't want anything that's gonna necessarily make me think too hard, I will always fall back to superhero stuff because it's comfort food. So I've been reading mostly the X-Men stuff.
End up stuck with it. I have come away from some titles, but at one point I think in 2011 when the New 52 universe started, I think I probably had 20 something titles in my bag. I think I've whittled it down, or some titles have been discontinued, and I think I still have. I mean, obviously with the future state titles at the moment, future state.
Yeah, Future State.
I can remember then. I've got I've got multiples now. I mean, they are running as one, but you'll have like one issue will be normal Wonder Woman, one will be
Immortal Wonder Woman, isn't it?
yeah, and then the same with Batman. You've got Dark Detective instead of Detective Comics, and you've got the next Batman instead of Batman. But I'm always drawn back. But I said last time one of the titles I'm enjoying at the moment that isn't superheroes is Year Zero, the zombie book.
Oh, right. I've not picked that one up.
I jumped on it in the first issue of the second volume. I just like the art. It's I forget his name now, Juan Van Rip.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And it's just fantastic. I recommend that highly.
I've been
Really highly.
It's like you said, like before lockdown, I was gravitating more to like indie stuff and Image, and then like my superheroes were dwindling down, and it was just Spider-Man because it's Spider-Man, not because I'm particularly enjoying Nick Spencer's run. It's hit and miss.
Yeah, like I've
It's
enjoyed
bits that I
some of
like,
it,
and there's
but
bits that I don't like. But it's kind of like the last arc. I found it like slipping further down my thing, but my reading order, I've been enjoying just because it's fun and superhero-y is Dan Slott's Fantastic Four.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one. I've been enjoying that one as well.
Yeah, it's just fun superhero nonsense.
Yeah.
And
Mortal Hulk is a really good one as well. Again, we talked about that last time, but that was such a surprise. I was kind of waning with the Hulk, and then Al Ewing and Bennett, Joe Bennett, they did a horror movie, body horror reimagining of the Hulk. Hulk can't die, and it's been surprising. Even now, I mean, Declan Shalvey did a standalone. He wrote and did all the art and everything himself, and it still seems to be going pretty well. So I do recommend that as well.
Yeah, I hear nothing but good things about it, but it's just not one that I've limited reading time and money has meant that I've never picked it up. Speaking of Declan Shalvey, though, one of my favorite books I read last year was Bog Bodies, his original graphic novel that he did with the artist's name escaped me. Gavin Fullerton was the artist's name. But he did Savage Town before that, which was an Irish crime story. But this was again another Irish crime story, but it was very different to Savage Town. But I really enjoyed it because it was just people in the wilderness kind of hiding from some criminal trying to find them, and it was a really good story. There's a lot more to it than what I've just explained, but Declan Shalvey has been kind of a really surprisingly great writer for someone who hasn't really worked as a writer before doing his kind of own OGNs and stuff, because I know he did maybe a couple of things for Marvel. He wrote, but
I was reading Venom with his work in it.
No, that was art, though.
And he did some All-Star Batman as well.
Yeah, which is all stuff he did as an artist. But because you kind of like being a writer, being a person who writes and draws their own stuff. A bit rich of me to say, I guess. But you often find that when an artist tries to become a writer, you're like, yeah, but you're an artist. You're really good as an artist. Are you going to be as good as a writer? And then I sit here going, I'm going to do all of it on my own. And then I realise that I sound a bit. But I still make that judgment of going like, is this going to be? But I've learned to just I wasn't like, it was surprising that Declan Shalvey was as good as he was on his first outing as a writer of an OGN. Not that he was able to write something, but more that I was as like blown away by his first thing, because you expect the first fully kind of self-contained book of his work to be, starting from a lower position, but he was top of his game when he started, in my opinion, and I'm sure he'll continue to go up.
Yeah, I did read Savage Town. I haven't read the other one you've suggested yet, but I will have to check it out.
Yeah, if you enjoyed Savage Town, I think you'll enjoy Bog Bodies. It's a bit darker in tone in terms of it just
Savage
being.
Town.
Yeah, Savage Town was almost comedic though, whereas Bog Bodies is a bit more just. It's like
straight.
It's straight, more straight played. It's still a little bit funny, and it's obviously steeped in Declan's own kind of culture of Ireland, but so it's still got that kind of phonetically written Irish and all that stuff that made the first few pages of Savage Town until I got the whole lingo down a little bit. I remember reading the first few pages of Savage Town and being like, okay, it's like reading most.
Hello, Google.
Yeah.
Google Translate.
Google Translate this. Basically, it's like reading a lot of Sainsbury books where I spend the first few pages figuring out what the crazy linguistic thing he's doing is, and then I get into it. But actually, speaking of Sainsbury, I finished his Hellblazer run. I realize I'm not, as a guy who makes books for children, I'm not recommending many books for children. But I absolutely loved his Hellblazer run and would highly recommend it to anybody who is already a fan of Hellblazer, because I think it really gets that kind of old school Vertigo Hellblazer feel, even though it was this kind of Sandman universe thing, even though it doesn't really touch on any of the Sandman universe. But I will recommend an all ages book just because I feel like it's at this point.
Desperately thinking,
which is Lumberjanes is fantastic.
Oh, yes.
It ended recently. I thought the ending was fantastic, and just being along the ride with those characters for 75 or so issues, from when it launched as a mini series to being turned into an ongoing, and then being the thing that just never stopped. But I've never felt it lost quality from switching creative teams and stuff. I thought they always found the right people for the job on that one, and it definitely has influenced some of the things I'm writing now. Not Ghost Jones, but some of the things I'm working on that I'm not quite ready to show the world have definitely been influenced by the stuff in Lumberjanes, because it's just a bunch of best friends having fun, weird monsters, and all that similar kind of like monsters are monsters and they do what monsters do. They're not necessarily bad. There are bad people.
They're just different.
But they're just different. And it kind of picks up on that thing that I really like in stories where it's not like the anti-hero grey area thing. It's more realistically, if you don't understand why someone's doing something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the wrong thing. You just need to understand the person on another level. And I thought Lumberjanes, one of the big things about the Lumberjane story is that it's always about kind of understanding and getting to know each other, and kind of people who started off kind of enemies at the beginning ended up being friends and hanging out by the end of the book. And it was, it's a really fun book that anyone can enjoy. It's the other than the X Factor book, which also anyone can enjoy. I think all Marvel books are kind of that kind of all ages thing, but I think Lumberjanes has a broad appeal, and I don't think anybody should pass that one up, because there's so much of it to read now. It's a really good thing to go back to. It's done, finished, and you can kind of read the whole thing, start to finish.
I'd pick it up for Veronica, and she wouldn't come over for a week. I'd see her on the weekend, and I'd be reading it before she'd come over. I'd go, I got you this. I think you might like this. And then I'd pick up the next one and read it, give it to her, and go, yeah, I think this one might be interesting too. Knowing darn well it was.
Yeah, it's a very good book, and it's a bittersweet that it's over, but I think they stuck the landing, which is always a worry with long-running series. Either they overstay their welcome, or they just don't know how to end it, and that's why they haven't ended it. And when they finally have to, it kind of whimpers. But they did a big blowout last couple of issues, extra size, really packed in the story. Called back to everything that happened, and yeah, really lovely book.
Cool.
Okay, so thank you so much for your time.
No
We know
problem.
that time is precious to everyone in this never-ending void of time.
Yep.
But thank you for sitting down and having a chat with us. Where can
No,
people
it's
find you
great.
again?
So, as I said, I will post a picture of my cat on Twitter and Instagram after this. So go check Peter James Mags on both those platforms, all one word, all lowercase. Shortly after the stream, when I've had a chance to wrangle my cat into sitting still for 5 seconds. And then also check out www.ghostjones.com for the webcomic, or if you use Tapas or Webtoons, you can search for Ghost Jones on both those platforms. And don't go to my website, www.peterjamesmax.com, because it is broken, as Adam savagely roasted me for earlier. But it will be fixed in the next few months, if I can get around to it. But it's not the place to go right now. But I think it is the only place where my shop is. So if you'd like to buy any of the physical editions, that's where you'd have to go. If you can deal with the fact that I don't have an about section, apparently.
And
Sorry.
and if you're watching this on YouTube, all the links will be in the description below.
Fantastic.
But thank you again. Thank you so much, and
Cheers, Max.
Been my pleasure.
we'll look forward to seeing you when the world is back to normal.
Yeah. SCGC, whatever year we can get back out.
2052.
Yes, that's what it feels like at this point. But hey, better safe than everyone infected with a potentially lethal virus. So
Totally.
Okay.
wear your masks, everybody. Wash your hands.
Thank you very much, Pete.